Let me ask you something. Have you ever given everything to someone, only to feel like you were never enough? Like no matter what you did, she always wanted a little more. More attention, more effort, more proof that you cared. Yet she gave you crumbs in return? If you've been there. If you've loved someone who drained you slowly, stay till the very end of this video, because it might just change the way you look at love forever. And before we dive in, hit subscribe and like this video if you're ready to protect your peace and learn what true masculine awareness looks like. Now, let's talk about the 6 hidden signs of a low-value woman and how to protect yourself from ever losing your soul in love again. Point 1. She demands more than she gives. You ever loved someone who made you feel like love was a test you could never pass? Like no matter how much you gave, Laird, it was never enough. You showed up, you listened, you cared, you tried to hold everything together, and still somehow, she made you feel like you were always falling short. It starts small, doesn't it? At first, her expectations feel flattering. She wants your time, your presence, your attention, and you give it freely, because that's what love is supposed to be. But slowly it changes. Suddenly she doesn't appreciate what you do, she measures it. Every gesture becomes something to be compared. Every mistake a reason to withhold affection. And here's the painful truth most men never want to admit. She wasn't asking for love. She was demanding control. Think back to that one person you gave everything to, your time, your loyalty, your softness, and still felt invisible. You kept showing up, hoping one day she'd see how much you cared, but she didn't want your love, she wanted your effort on her terms. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind and are not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." You see, when you love someone who only takes, your emotions become their tool. You lose control over your own peace, trying to earn a connection that should have been mutual from the start. Ask yourself this: how many times did you find yourself apologizing for simply needing to rest? How many times did you hold your tongue to avoid another argument, telling yourself, it's not worth it? I'll just keep the peace. But there was never peace, was there? Because her peace depended on your obedience. That's not love. That's emotional debt, and the more you pay, the less she respects you, because love that is demanded can never be appreciated. But here's the shift. The day you stop giving more than you receive, the entire dynamic changes. She starts to feel your absence, your distance, your silence, and suddenly, what she once took for granted becomes valuable. That's the irony of human behavior. When you stop overgiving, you teach others how to truly value you. It's not about revenge. It's not about making her chase you. It's about realizing that your love has weight, and that weight should never be carried alone. So to the man watching this who's sitting in that quiet pain, the one who's tired of trying, tired of explaining, tired of feeling unseen, hear this. You're not too much. You just gave too much to someone who gave too little. And when you finally stop begging for love from someone who can't even love herself properly, that's when you start to heal. Because real love doesn't drain you, brother. It refills you. And the moment you understand that, everything about how you love will change forever. Point 2, her world runs on drama. There's a certain kind of woman you meet who seems alive in chaos. You know the type. She turns peace into tension, silence into suspicion, and calm into conflict. It's like her oxygen is drama, and without it she can't breathe. At first it feels intoxicating. The passion, the intensity, the unpredictable energy, it sweeps you up. Every argument feels like a test of love. Every reconciliation feels like fire and rain mixing in your veins. You tell yourself, this must be what real love feels like. It's supposed to be wild, right? But deep down there's this quiet exhaustion building inside you. One day you'll wake up and realize you've been walking on eggshells for months. Every word, every expression, every silence becomes a potential trigger. You start replaying conversations before you say them out loud. Afraid she'll twist your intentions into something ugly. That's when it hits you that this isn't love anymore. It's survival. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." But when you're with a woman who thrives on drama, calmness is something she fears. Because peace doesn't give her control, it takes it away. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how she becomes distant when things are too good? How she starts a fight right when you thought everything was fine? That's not coincidence. That's conditioning. A low-value woman uses conflict as fuel. When you react, she feels powerful. When you get emotional, she feels desired. It's not love she wants, it's control disguised as connection. Remember that night when she accused you of not caring because you didn't text back right away? The argument that went from 0 to 100 just because you wanted an hour to yourself? You weren't wrong for wanting space, but she couldn't handle space. Because distance to her means losing control of the emotional battlefield. And maybe you stayed because you thought you could fix it. You thought if you stayed calm long enough, patient enough, she'd eventually match your peace. But she didn't, because peace requires self-awareness. And she's still running from her own reflection. Here's the truth. When a woman's world runs on drama, she's not fighting you. She's fighting the silence inside her. You just became the easiest outlet. So stop trying to win her peace for her. Stop sacrificing your stability to soothe her chaos. You can't build a kingdom with someone who burns down the walls just to feel something. And maybe when you finally walk away, when she realizes that her storm no longer moves you, that's when she'll start to see what she lost. Because drama may attract attention, but peace, real peace, and that's what leaves a lasting impact. And when you learn to choose peace over passion, chaos loses its power over you forever. Point 3, she competes with you. You ever been with someone who couldn't just be happy for you? Every time you won, she acted like she lost. Every moment you tried to share your growth, she found a way to shrink it. At first it's subtle. You tell her some good news. Maybe you got that job you worked hard for. Maybe you've been hitting the gym. Maybe life's finally starting to move in the right direction. And instead of pride in her eyes, there's something else. A flicker, a tightening of her jaw, a quick change of subject. You brush it off thinking, maybe she's just having a bad day. But soon it becomes a pattern. She starts comparing herself to you. If you're focused, she'll call you obsessed. If you're confident, she'll call you arrogant. If people respect you, she'll quietly find ways to chip at that respect when you're not looking. And slowly, almost invisibly, you start to dim your own light just to keep her comfortable. Do you know that feeling? When you start making yourself smaller for someone you love, when you hold back your excitement, your confidence, your dreams, not because you've lost them, but because you're afraid they'll threaten her, that's not love, brother. That's quiet control wrapped in insecurity. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one." And that's what a high-value man does. He doesn't compete with his partner, and he doesn't tolerate competition disguised as love. But a low-value woman, she sees your strength as a mirror, one that reflects everything she refuses to face in herself. When she sees your discipline, she feels her chaos. When she sees your purpose, she feels her confusion. And instead of growing with you, she tries to pull you back to where she's standing, because your growth reminds her of her own stagnation. You might remember those moments after a fight and when she'd say something cutting like, "You think you're better than me, don't you?" And you'd feel guilty for no reason at all. But here's the truth, she wasn't angry at you. She was angry at her own lack of direction. That's what men forget. Competition kills connection. A real relationship isn't two people trying to outshine each other. It's two people lighting the same fire. So if you've ever found yourself constantly defending your dreams, your focus, your ambition, and ask yourself, why am I trying to convince someone who claims to love me that my light doesn't threaten theirs? Because here's the quiet wisdom. A woman who competes with you can never grow with you. And one day, when you finally stop explaining yourself and start living fully again, she'll realize what she lost, not just a man, but a mirror of everything she could have become. Don't dim your fire to keep someone else warm. The right woman will never need you to shrink to love you. She'll rise beside you, not against you. Point 4. She uses vulnerability as a weapon. Have you ever opened your heart to someone? Told them about your fears, your past, your pain, thinking they'd hold it with care, but instead they used it against you later? If you've ever been in love with a woman who weaponized your vulnerability, you know exactly what kind of wound I'm talking about. It's not the loud screaming kind of pain, it's the quiet betrayal that cuts deep. It starts beautifully. She asks about your childhood, your struggles, the people who hurt you. You think finally someone who wants to understand me. So you open up. You tell her about your broken family, the friend who betrayed you, the heartbreak that changed you. She listens. She comforts you. She makes you feel safe. But later, when she's angry, jealous, or wants control, those same secrets come back like bullets. She'll say things like, "No wonder you act like that. after what your ex did to you. Or you think you're strong. Please, I know the real you. And in that moment, something inside you breaks. Because it's not just an argument anymore, it's a betrayal of trust. You start walking on eggshells. You stop sharing. You stop being open. You start wearing emotional armor. Not because you want to, but because you have to. And maybe you've noticed this. She cries when she's wrong. She plays the victim when you try to hold her accountable. Her tears aren't just emotion, they're strategy. Because deep down she knows your empathy is your soft spot. And every time she cries, apologizes dramatically, or reminds you of her pain, she's pulling the strings of your heart. You tell yourself she's just emotional. She'll change. But brother, manipulation wrapped in emotion doesn't change. It just becomes more subtle. You ever had that moment where you're apologizing, and halfway through, you realize you didn't even do anything wrong? That's what it feels like when a woman uses vulnerability as a weapon. And here's the truth, you can't build love on fear. You can't be free with someone who punishes your honesty. Real vulnerability is sacred. It's where love grows. But when it's used as leverage, it becomes poison, slowly turning connection into control. Maybe you remember your ex's voice trembling when she said, "I can't believe you'd hurt me like that," even though all you did was set a boundary. You stood there confused, heartbroken, wondering how you became the villain in your own love story. But here's what you need to understand. A low-value woman sees your vulnerability not as a gift, but as an entry point for power. And a high-value man learns to protect that. Because once you start guarding your peace instead of explaining your pain, the game changes. So if she ever used your heart as her weapon, don't let that turn you cold. Let it turn you wise. Because the next woman who deserves you will never use your softness to break you. She'll use it to build with you. Point 5, she can't be alone. Have you ever met someone who always needed someone? Someone who couldn't stand silence, who filled every quiet space with noise, every gap in her life with a new distraction? Maybe she was that woman, the one who said, "I just hate being alone." You thought it was sweet at first. You felt needed. You liked that she wanted you around. But slowly, you realized it wasn't love, it was fear. You started noticing things. When you pulled away a little, she panicked. When you didn't text back fast enough, she assumed the worst. When you needed time for yourself, she said, "You don't care anymore." But deep down you did care. You gave her your time, your energy, your attention. Sometimes even when it hurt you, because a part of you thought, maybe I can fix her loneliness. But brother, here's the truth. You can't save someone from the emptiness they refuse to face. A woman who can't be alone doesn't love you, and she clings to you. And there's a difference. She doesn't see you as a person with a life, purpose, and boundaries. She sees you as a cure, a temporary medicine for her emotional void. And when you can't fill it, she starts looking elsewhere. You ever notice how quickly she moved on after your breakup? How just weeks later, she was with someone new, posting selfies, laughing, pretending she's healed? That's not healing, that's escaping. And maybe that's what hurts the most, in realizing that while you were trying to build something real, she was just trying not to be alone. You might have stayed up at night thinking, was I not enough? But here's the truth. No one can be enough for someone who hasn't learned to be enough for themselves. A woman who fears solitude fears self-confrontation. Silence is her enemy because it exposes her truth, that she's been running from herself for years. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." But she never learned that. She keeps looking for peace in people. And when they leave, she calls it heartbreak. Maybe your story with her felt like a constant chase. One moment she was loving and warm. The next she was distant and cold. You could never relax because her emotions dictated the entire relationship. And every time you thought about stepping back to breathe, guilt hit you. Because she'd say, "You're leaving me just like everyone else." And you stayed, even when it hurt. But let me tell you something. Love isn't about being someone's escape. It's about being someone's choice. So if she couldn't be alone, if she replaced you before the dust of your breakup even settled, let that teach you something powerful. You were never the problem. Her fear of solitude was. Because real love doesn't come from someone who needs you to feel whole. It comes from someone who's already whole and still chooses you. Point 6, her love is conditional. Do you remember that moment? When you realized her love wasn't real love. It wasn't that she didn't say, "I love you," she did. But you started to notice that every "I love you" came with a condition. She loved you when you agreed with her. She loved you when you gave her attention. She loved you when you made her feel adored. But the moment you set a boundary, the warmth vanished. And that's when it hit you. Her love had strings attached. It wasn't built on understanding, respect, or mutual growth. It was built on control. You were loved only when you played the part she wanted you to play. Think about it. How many times did you hold back your feelings just to keep the peace? How many times did you swallow your truth because you didn't want to lose her? And how many times did she punish you with silence, withdrawal, or emotional distance just because you didn't act how she wanted? That's not love. That's transactional affection. And yet you stayed, because when her love was there, it felt real. When she was sweet, it felt like heaven. When she pulled away, it felt like death. That's how conditional love traps you. It keeps you chasing the high, begging for another hit of affection that was never unconditional to begin with. You remember the night she told you, "You've changed." But deep down, you hadn't changed. You just stopped performing. You stopped giving endlessly without receiving. You stopped letting her dictate your worth. And the moment you did, she left. That's the cruel part of loving someone whose affection depends on your compliance. They don't want you. They want the version of you that feeds their ego, that never questions them, that never says no. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." But when you're with someone whose love is conditional, you're forced to do what's not right and say what's not true, just to be loved. And maybe that's what broke you the most, realizing that your honesty was punished and your silence was rewarded. You kept trying to show her your heart, but she only valued your obedience. And when you finally stood up for yourself, she called you cold, distant, or emotionally unavailable. But here's what she never understood. Real love doesn't punish truth. It honors it. So if you ever feel like you had to earn her affection, remember this. Unconditional love doesn't need performance. It needs presence. The kind of woman who truly loves you won't make you prove your worth. She'll recognize it. She'll love you not just when you're strong, but when you're vulnerable. Not just when you give, but when you need. And until you meet that kind of love, walk away from the kind that comes with conditions. Because the love that demands your silence to survive isn't love at all. It's control disguised as care. Conclusion. At the end of the day, a low-value woman isn't your punishment, she's your mirror. She reflects where your boundaries were weak, where your self-worth needed growth, and where your peace was fragile. And when you learn those lessons, when you become a man who no longer chases what hurts him, everything changes. So if you've ever loved someone who only gave you crumbs, remember this. The right woman won't make you beg to be seen. She'll meet you in your stillness. She'll love your peace, and she'll never make you choose between love and self-respect. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.